Hello and welcome to the West Sport Show. My name's Jackson Barrett. I'm coming to you from outside the MCG. There was meant to be 90,000 people here today for what would have been the third day of the Boxing Day Test. It's not quite tumbleweeds. There are a few people wandering around, but it's not quite the crowd that was expected. The test wrapped up inside 2 days. In this emergency cricket episode, we'll have a look at what the two-day test means for Cricket Australia. I've spoken to Jhye Richardson as well, the WA Quick, who returned to the test side for the first time in 4 years, and we'll go through some of the big selection questions facing Australia before the Sydney Test. Big talking point across the past couple of days was the MCG wicket. It's just the fourth time in Australian history that a test has wrapped up inside 2 days. Remarkably, two of them have come in this Ashes series. Of course, the high-octane opener in Perth was just a month ago. 20 wickets fell on the first day here at the MCG. 36 fell, and the test was wrapped up about 6 minutes before the scheduled stumps on day two. MCG curator Matt Page made the controversial decision to leave 10 mils of grass on it. For context, there was about 7 left on it in Perth and much less in other spots across the country. But Page actually came out and faced the music today. He fronted one of the bigger cricket press packs I've ever seen this morning. Everyone in Melbourne wants to know what he was thinking, what the fallout's been. MCC CEO Stuart Fox spoke as well. He's backing Page in, but here's what the curator had to say about the deck.
I was in a state of shock after the first day to see everything that happened and 20 wickets in a day. I've never been involved in a test match like it. Hopefully never involved in a test match like it again. This year, we've gone in with 10 mils. We knew we were going to get a lot of hot weather at the back end of the game. Issues here with deterioration in pitches, getting very flat has been well documented. We're really conscious of that. We don't want to go back to where we were in 2017. And our grass is vitally important to what we do. We don't get inconsistent bounce. We don't get deterioration in our pitches. And we're trying to balance that contest between bat and ball throughout over the 4 or 5 days to provide that captivating test for all. So for us, we left it longer because we knew we were going to get weather at the back end that we knew we needed our grass at. You look back at it and you go, well, it's favoured the bowlers too much days 1, days 2. Now, if that doesn't happen, then we set ourselves up really good for, days 3, day 4.
While it was a pretty dicey wicket, and clearly it's been under the spotlight, I think there is a serious debate to be had over whether the batting influenced it as well. Page, when he spoke this morning, wouldn't buy into whether or not he was stitched up a little bit by the batters. Stuart Fox alluded to the fact that he felt that was the case a little bit, but the overriding sense with the batters is that if they didn't go, there was a ball with their name on it. You've got to get them before they get you, and that's why Harry Brook had quite a bit of success across both innings, Jacob Bethel as well, and it's what the Aussies tried to do a little bit more in the second innings, is up that scoring rate and be a little bit more aggressive. It also forced the bowlers to bowl some better balls, and that's kind of what put both this test and the Perth test in fast forward. It's also going to have a massive impact on Cricket Australia, particularly the coffers. They lose millions of dollars. It's estimated they lost $3 million per day for the end of the Perth test, and that number has been estimated at upwards of $5 million for the Melbourne test. So that's a significant financial fallout. To make up for it, they did put on a fan day here, which was pretty well attended, but there was expected to be 90,000 people here, which would have sent the test rocketing towards the all-time Ashes attendance record. So for both the MCC, who cop the brunt of the food and the functions, and Cricket Australia, who take the gate, it's set to be a fairly large financial blow. There's a real sense here in Melbourne that this test was, 1, not good cricket, and 2, not good for cricket. 2-day tests are clearly not sustainable from a financial point of view and also an entertainment point of view. Justin Langer has written in The West tomorrow that the core of cricket sustainability is making people fall in love with it. And 2-day tests where the routine over this festive period is for them to be going for 5 days and just be on and being a part of people's lives is a real blow in that capacity as well. Also, Melbourne is full of travelling supporters and people here for the cricket. So there was a sense of people just being at a loss here this morning. There was about 20,000 Barmy Army fans in the house over the last couple of days, and clearly they've had a pretty good time. They've been set up at a pub on Flinders Street, and they'll find something to do over the next week or so, but really people were here to see cricket. Lots of people travelled from Perth and from all over Australia to see cricket. So the overwhelming feeling is that it's not great for cricket. We don't want to see too much more of it, but it seems to be the way that the game's going, with scoring rates getting higher and more grass being left on wickets like this one. So for now, the bulk of Australia's squad will remain in Melbourne. They have an optional training session scheduled for Monday morning here at the MCG. And then from there, they split up a little bit. So my understanding is that some of the New South Wales-based players, which at the moment is just Steve Smith in the side and Mitchell Starc and captain Pat Cummins, they will head to Sydney. Josh Inglis, who was the reserve batter, and Bo Webster, who hasn't actually played a game at all this series, have been released to play Big Bash. So Webster will face the Renegades with his Hobart Hurricanes on Monday night, and Josh Inglis will return to bat in the middle order for the Scorchers against the Thunder on Tuesday night. Other players won't play Big Bash. There had been talk, particularly yesterday afternoon, about organising some sort of form of entertainment or contest on the MCG. It was ruled out pretty quickly, the prospect of these two teams coming back and playing each other today. Travis Head spoke on that and said he absolutely would not be interested in that. And then other concepts were raised around Legends games and things like that. But they settled on the fan zone today. I don't think there will be anything else happening over the next couple of days. And then it really just increases the preparation time for the Sydney Test, which is still 7 days away now. So similar to in the aftermath of Perth, Travis Head joked that it'll give the media more time to talk about things like Noosa and what the English are up to, and said he had been jealous of that trip and that he was going to enjoy some more time off. So it certainly frees the schedule up for Australia a little bit as well. It could certainly be beneficial for a couple of their players, particularly the bowlers. You think about the load that Mitch Starc and Scott Boland have had over the past couple of weeks, and there was always the prospect of them being rested at some stage. You'd think that now both of them, or at least one of them, will play the Sydney Test and would have played all 5 when it's all said and done. So yeah, it's certainly obviously they would have liked to have won this test, but it's a boon for Australia in terms of keeping guys fresh. One of the other guys in the mix there is Jhye Richardson. He returned to Test cricket for the first time in 4 years. His last appearance, he took a 5-wicket haul in the second innings against England in the Adelaide Ashes Test of 2020. It's been a long road back for him. He's been incredibly injury prone over the last few years, as WA and Scorchers fans will know all too well. He had surgery in January, which was a decision that raised eyebrows at the time because it cut his Scorchers campaign and Shield campaign short, but it was a decision made after consultation with Andrew McDonald and Pat Cummins and very much with an eye towards this series. The timeline had been pushed back on that a little bit, and for a while it didn't look like he'd get there. And it's all happened pretty quickly for him. He only made his return for Fremantle playing Premier Cricket less than 2 months ago. I caught up with him at the fan zone this morning briefly. Obviously, we've followed him very closely in the West for quite a while now, so did ask some pretty specific questions, but he gave us a couple of minutes of his time after meeting fans this morning. What did it feel like standing at the top of the mark in front of 100,000 after all that you've been through in the last year or so? How special is that for you?
Yeah, it is really special. I was just saying before, it's very different, I think, because, the rise to getting back to Test cricket has happened relatively quickly. I know that surgery and rehab has been a long process, but in terms of playing my first game for Freo to now, it's happened really quickly. So I think the beauty in that is you have less time to think about it. It's a bit of a blessing in disguise. I think if I, had have played a lot of, Shield cricket or something like that building up, I probably would have spent more time thinking about what it's going to be like to be playing Test match cricket again. So I think that was a positive in that sense. And, having a bit of experience playing Test match cricket, albeit 4 years ago, you sort of learn to drown out the crowd a bit and try and just concentrate on what you're doing at the top of your mark. So, yeah, I think I was surprised, actually. I was surprised that it didn't affect me as much as I thought. But, yeah, it was an awesome experience. Boxing Day Test can tick that one off. And, yeah, the crowd and fans are awesome.
How'd you pull up? How's it?
Yeah, fine. It'd be absolutely fine to back up again if needed.
Yeah. I wanted to ask one about your throwing as well.
Yep.
I saw you throwing the ball. I think you might have bowled it in the Big Bash game, but threw it in yesterday. Where's your shoulder at from a throwing point of view?
Yeah, throwing feels better than the first time.
Yeah.
Obviously it's evident. You can see it's not quite there, but it's a long process. We know that throwing comes back sort of 12 to 18 months after the fact. After starting bowling again, it's just a completely different action. It obviously requires a lot more from my shoulder, but throwing's going okay. There's not a lot of intensity behind it, but look, I mean, as long as we can keep progressing that over the next 12 to 18 months, there's no reason why it couldn't get back to a decent level.
Yeah.
So where I can, I'll try and get some throws in where I can, just to make sure that I'm working on it, working a lot on throwing at training. So yeah, whilst it's probably not going to whiz him in from the boundary to get a run out, I'm still able to get it in, which is nice.
Do you feel more comfortable in your body doing stuff like that?
Yeah, definitely. I haven't dived yet. Ideally I don't have to. We don't need to test those waters, but I've worked a lot on rolling and getting into certain positions. A lot of technique work to try and protect myself as much as I can. We know that shoulders are pretty volatile, so making sure that I can protect myself as best as possible. But yeah, look, we won't know until it happens, but ideally we don't have to find out.
You've said to me previously that you like to stay up once your bowling loads are up.
Yep.
Is that kind of what you're thinking the next little bit looks like with kind of mid-year and September tests in mind?
Oh yeah, I think it'll be a conversation that we have, post-season. I think it's just understanding what's going to be right and what everyone wants to do and what we're aiming for, I guess. There's obviously a lot of cricket over winter, so we'll see what happens. But yeah, I think there'll be a recovery period at some point. It's just whether or not we do that sooner rather than later. But yeah, haven't had that conversation yet.
Before we have a bit of a look at some of Australia's selection questions, particularly around the batters, a quick word from our friends at Automasters. Seeing is believing with Automasters AutoCam. The future of vehicle service and repair is here. Cutting-edge technology brings the service experience to the palm of your hand. Real-time video with a real-time report on your car sent direct to you from your Automasters technician. You'll see any problem firsthand, along with a detailed explanation and recommendation from your service advisor. How good? Switch to Automasters AutoCam, call 1300 Automasters. As England swept Australia away for just 132 on the second day of the test, it left probably 3 Australian batters with their positions on the line. The first one of them is Jake Weatherald. He's averaged just over 20 and scored about 140 runs in this series so far, which probably just isn't quite enough as an opener long term, and we haven't quite seen him and Travis Head fire together enough. It's a situation now that reeks a little bit of fellow Tasmanian George Bailey, who played all 5 tests of an Ashes series and then didn't play again in after the 2013-14 series. I hope that's different for Weatherall, but his output, they'll just be looking for a little bit more over the next little period. Australia's next test assignment is in mid-year. They'll face Bangladesh in the top end, but then they go to South Africa, which is a place notoriously difficult to face the new ball, and it's an attack that'll include Nortje and Rabada as well. So whoever is in that role would want to be in some decent nick by the time they get there. The other guy that's had a lean summer and a pretty frustrating one is Marnus Labuschagne. He scored 2 single-figure scores here in Melbourne, and it hasn't quite been the summer they are after or they expected when he hit the series in excellent Shield form. He dominated the first part of the Shield season. He was even making runs in club cricket. He'd made runs in one-day cricket. He was absolutely flying. But with a bigger lens in Test cricket, he hasn't scored a century since the middle of 2023, since that last Ashes series. So that's still a bit of a lingering watch for Australia. That kind of Travis Head, Jake Weatherald, Marnus Labuschagne axis at the top of the order isn't quite firing on all cylinders at the moment. They've still got that flexibility with how they use Travis Head. When he spoke this morning, he said that he's still happy to bat anywhere. Whether that changes in different conditions, it might change in South Africa if they find someone else they think can do that job. So that's a big watch at the moment. The other 2 are in the middle order. So, of course, Usman Khawaja was recalled for the Adelaide test in pretty sensational circumstances with Steve Smith out with that vestibular issue he'd battled with. He had been effectively dropped from that test after missing Brisbane with injury. Josh Inglis was going to play ahead of him. They did a reshuffle. He scored 82 and 42 and looked really good. He didn't look quite as good here. He looked settled enough in the first innings, but his second innings dismissal for a second ball duck was really disappointing. He copped a bouncer from Josh Tongue and top-edged it down like a wild hook shot down to third man and was caught. So that dismissal will have him on watch a little bit, of course. He hasn't confirmed himself that he'll retire after the Ashes series, but the widespread expectation is that he'll be moved on or finished up after this series if he doesn't make that call. That's a big watch as well, whether they offer him that farewell test, whether that decision comes in the next couple of days. Perhaps he's got a little bit more time to think about it with the 2-day test, so there's that as well. The third one is Cam Green, who made starts in both innings. He's a notoriously really nervous starter. He got starts here twice. He made 17 and 19. On 17 in the first innings, he actually ran himself out. He tried to drop and run a ball off Brighton cast. There was never a single there, and the big quick went and collected the ball and turned around and threw the stumps down. So that was a really frustrating dismissal for Cam Green. The other one, he slashed at this short and wide ball from Ben Stokes and snicked off when Australia really needed just to push that total out through the middle order in the second innings as well. That comes after the one in Brisbane that copped pretty heavy criticism, where he backed away, gave himself room to the leg side and tried to play over cover against Cast. Leading the criticism on Green was a WA great, Simon Kadich, on the Channel 7 coverage. He described it as predetermined rubbish and was worried that Green was starting to premeditate shots, which is always a bit of an issue. So his spot is a bit of a watch. He's actually never been dropped in his Test career, as much as he has missed a lot of cricket through injury over the last little period. He's never actually been dropped from a side. So that's a real watch. Bo Webster is obviously there. He's lurking. He hasn't played a game this summer, but he performed so well and so consistently for Australia in the 12 months before the series, obviously after making his debut in Sydney a year ago. So he'll play Big Bash for the Hurricanes. I think that's really important because he's barely played any cricket since November, since before the series, and then they'll have to make a call on where they go with the all-rounders. One of the big things to take out of the Melbourne Test for this England side is that arguably their two best performers, the two players we've rated highest in our play ratings in the West, are Josh Tongue, who was the reserve quick and didn't come into the side until after Mark Wood was injured in Adelaide. He took a fiver in the first innings, was excellent again in the second innings, and then Jacob Bethel as well, who had been the reserve batter for the tour and replaced Ollie Pope at the number 3 spot. Josh Tongue looks the quick for the future for England. Steve Smith spoke after play yesterday about what makes him so difficult to face is that he gets his arm up above the perpendicular, and for a right armer coming over the wicket, he can actually angle the ball back into right-handers, which is rare. So that gave Marnus Labuschagne some real grief, gave Steve Smith some real grief. Tongue's now got Smith out 5 times across formats, once in the 100, once in county cricket, and now 3 times in Test cricket. So he looks a real prospect for them. Bethel played the most mature innings of his career as well to score 40. He was their top scorer in the run chase and just guided them through a tricky little period. So they've found a couple there. The one change they will have to make is that Gus Atkinson is almost certain to be ruled out of the rest of the series after limping off the ground with a hamstring injury. Bowled 5 overs yesterday and then was set to deliver a ball to Travis Head and really only just got it out. He pulled up short with a hammy and came off straight away. So he's a big watch. The two reserve bowlers on the tour are Matthew Potts, who many people have been wanting to see a little bit more of, particularly in conditions like these ones here where he can do some damage off the seam. And Matthew Fisher is the other reserve as well. Other than that, they're a little bit thin, so they'll have to make a call on Atkinson. They've got Will Jacks batting at 8, who was barely used in this Test match as well. So, yeah, a couple of issues for England as well. That's it for this one. Thanks for joining us on the West Sport Show. All our cricket coverage is in the paper and at thewest.com.au. We'll have our player ratings video from the Melbourne Test out shortly as well on our YouTube channel, and we'll be back after the Sydney Test.